Hi, my name is Chloe, and I'm a graduate student at National Taiwan Normal University studying TESOL program, and I'm here today to spill the tea.
Hi Chloe.
Hi Michelle.
Thank you for coming to our show. Welcome to the show. How are you feeling?
Thank you for inviting me here. I feel really good today and I will go back to Vietnam tomorrow to enjoy my summer vacation. So I'm so excited.
Well, I'm glad that we caught you right before your flight. So, just a couple of questions to start off our podcast.
Yeah.
Why grad school?
I think having the master degree would help me to open up more job opportunities. Definitely having a master degree, especially in TESOL, can help me to obtain maybe a lecturer position in the university, and that's really what I want, to be, teaching, not the small English institutions, but the university can be able to interact with university students. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that you want to teach in universities in Vietnam, right?
Yeah, that is my initial plan.
initial plan. Well, then in that case, why choose Taiwan? And of course, why TESOL?
So there are two parts, right? Taiwan and TESOL.
Yeah.
So first, for the very first part, Taiwan, I think the relationship between me and Taiwan is like destiny, because I have seen a lot of my friends, students, and relatives that traveled here, posted videos and photos of Taiwan, and I can obviously observe the pace of life in Taiwan, the scenery, the people, everything seems to be very matched with my personality. It can be peaceful,
Yeah.
but it can be very modern. So Taiwan is peaceful,
Yeah.
but also very modern.
I mean, it's sort of, I think in Taipei especially, it's like a combination of modern and then some old school vibe. And I think that's what that's what I like the most about Taipei as well.
Yeah. For the second part, I have always been very passionate about language education, and applying for TESOL program is my decision, and then I search online, NTNU TESOL program pops up at the very highest ranking program here in Taipei, so I just go for it. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that your bachelor degree was in TESOL as well?
Oh, actually my bachelor degree was in Indian studies, which is
very, very different from TESOL, that's for sure.
So in Indian studies, of course, we studied about India. We studied history, literature, mathematics, and
math?
just a bit. We do not learn. We do not seriously learn everything about India, but just for us to have the basic knowledge, we even learned about geography.
Geography.
Everything about India.
I don't think there are any universities in Taiwan that actually offer this sort of program, but maybe I'm wrong. Listeners, do not call me out. So, and then with that, you transition to teaching English.
Yeah, but actually, aside from the Indian subjects, we also focus on English teaching. So that is the main part of Indian studies. When people hear about Indian studies, they only think that we studied about India only, right? But then the focus of the program was English. So we studied about English, listening, reading, speaking, and writing.
So the 4 basic skills.
Yeah, the 4 basic skills. And at that time, I was having several teaching part-time jobs in Vietnam, and I think it grows the interest in me of being a teacher.
Yeah. I think the love for teaching sort of always through, I don't know, having part-time jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like part-time tutoring, and then somehow you realize that, oh yeah, I love teaching, let's just go for the teaching degree.
Yeah.
Just a quick question though, why teaching English and why not teaching Chinese? Because NTNU, there is this teaching Chinese as a foreign language program, and because you love teaching in general, why not go for teaching Chinese?
I mean, learning Mandarin Chinese has always been a trend in Vietnam because of our commercial partnership
with China.
with China and Taiwan at the same time.
Yeah.
But then for me, I love English.
More?
I have never learned Chinese before, so actually I couldn't compare about between the two. But for me, I love teaching English. So I only applied for the TESOL program, but not Chinese.
And I'm sure that you encounter some sort of challenges when you're studying in a foreign language, because English is your L2, right?
Yeah, L2.
L2. And because now that you're in grad school, it's a completely different game than bachelor's, right?
Yeah.
How do you handle the challenge of studying complex subjects?
So for me, as a non-English major graduate student, it was really hard for me at first because there was too many difficult, complex words that I have to understand, like scaffolding. So at first, I have to start with very, very specific words so that I can understand the basic fundamental knowledge of the major of the program. And then talking about grad schools, we have to talk about research papers. In Vietnam, I didn't have to read that much research papers. So I am not familiar with these, academia written language, and then the length of research papers are very very long.
It can be very, very long.
Yeah.
And I agree as well. Like coming from a bachelor degree to a master's program, it can be a big jump because you don't have to read research papers at all for your bachelor's. And all of a sudden you're thrown into the deep end of the pool and you have to start reading words that are pretty big, like pedagogy, scaffolding. Those words can be quite intimidating. And have you found any particular resources that are helpful in terms of helping your academic language skills? Do you have any resources?
Yeah. So I think I was lucky that at the time I was I went for the graduate school. There was ChatGPT.
Oh yes, you were right at that.
At that point.
Yeah.
Because I remembered when I was preparing the documentary documents to apply for the program here. I had to do everything myself. I have to do the proofread myself without any consultation from anyone, from any source. But then now in the graduate, I have the assistance of ChatGPT. So for me, it has done wonders. Our job now is to draft our idea and then we can polish it using ChatGPT. So that is the main source that I've been using. Another one would be like Qbot. That one is for paraphrasing.
Paraphrasing.
Paraphrasing, and it can alter and adjust your tones of words. And you can use that to make it more formal. For instance.
I think all these resources are kind of useful. I have to say, if you don't have anyone to consult to. But then remember, guys, ChatGPT and those AI tools are just tools. You still have to have your own ideas. You can't expect those tools to do your work for you. And speaking of using these tools, we have to write a whole lot of research proposals in the program, right? That is the most annoying part about our graduate studies. What are some of your main challenges when you are writing academic papers in a foreign language?
I think the most challenging part is to ensure the clarity and the coherence of your research proposal. Actually, for me, in my very first semester, I submitted one research proposal for Professor Howard Yeah,
yes,
Professor Howard's class.
Uh-huh.
And it was in the second week of my graduate program. Yeah, and I already had to submit one research kind of outline. I did mine, I submitted mine, but
Yeah.
Professor told me, Chloe, this is a lesson plan. You have no idea about a research paper, right? And I was like, sorry, Professor.
No.
Yeah, I will do more research. I have to admit that at that point, because it was my very first semester and it was the very first 2 weeks, I haven't read that much research papers. So the one I turned in looks completely like a lesson plan of a teacher.
That was your foundation, right?
Yeah.
Teaching.
Teaching.
For your bachelor's. So of course you thought, okay, maybe it is similar, but it's different. And what would you say would be the main differences between a research proposal outline and a lesson plan?
I mean, in a lesson plan, the scope is quite easy. You plan the thing that you want to teach that day. You want to teach that lesson. But for the research proposal, you really need to have solid research questions.
And rationale, people.
And rationale.
Yes.
Why do you need to conduct a research on this topic?
I think that would be the main challenges for a lot of first year MA students, which is they don't know why they're doing the research, the objectives, and the aim, and then also the rationale. What do you have to say to support your purpose, right? I think that's the main difficulty. So how do you tackle these challenges? Do you just read a lot of papers, or?
I think that must be where you start. Read a lot of research papers. So when you read research papers, you will kind of have a basic knowledge of how a research paper looks like. What is in the literature review? Because for me before that, I thought literature review would be literature.
Literature.
You really need to understand what is a research gap.
Yes.
And then how to find research papers to back you up. So those kind of knowledge have to accumulate through the reading process.
And I do agree with that completely, because I feel like in order for you to write, you need to read. Writing is a process of thinking as well. You are producing what you are thinking.
Yes.
And I think reading and writing goes hand in hand very, very well. So speaking of academic writing, are there any other tools that you use to help with your academic writing? Because writing a research proposal or a research paper is very, very different from lesson plans,
Yeah, sometimes we'll have to use Google Translation in order to comprehend the research paper, to comprehend very complex concepts. Because reading is L2 is really different with reading in your own language. L1. So Google Translation is also another tool that I've been using.
So you would translate. So you would basically input the paragraph that you need translating to Google Translate. And then you translate it to Vietnamese.
Yes.
Does that really help you in understanding the concept?
I mean, for really comprehend the text, really comprehend in terms of the complex concepts.
Then you will really
reading L1 really helps.
And actually, there are other tools and resources. Just like the Center of Academic Literacy, we are here to help you in terms of your academic writing and speaking. And of course, guys, please come here and come find me, because I'm one of the tutors here. And do you ask for help from your professors or your classmates for the language-related issues that you might encounter?
For me, professors and classmates, they are extremely supportive, friendly, and they're very, very kind. But then for language, I think you have to figure it out yourself. But actually, at first, I was really curious. In my first day, shocked about people's language proficiency. Even though I was a teacher in Vietnam, but I didn't use English to teach.
And you use Vietnamese to teach?
I use my L1, my Vietnamese, to teach students. And then in my bachelor degree, we wasn't have that much opportunity. We didn't have that much opportunity to study in English. I mean, the lecturers they still used Vietnamese to teach us at that time.
Okay.
So the opportunity to really use the language is not that much.
So when you were doing your bachelor, it was not in EMI then?
No.
Okay.
It was using your L1 to teach L2 classroom.
Yeah.
But then in my very first class, I remember it was academic writing, and my classmates was Kelly, everyone.
The professor is Pei Qian.
Was you? You were there.
Yes, I was there with you.
Yeah, you were there. You was at the very first table. Very first desk.
Yeah.
So I was shocked. You know, I haven't used language in reality in communication for several years before coming here. So it was a time that I was in shock, and I realized that I really have to put an effort to work on this, to work on my own language proficiency. Because before that, in Vietnam, I think it will be more exam focused.
More testing.
Of testing.
I think I remember that first day that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Because it was my second year, I think. Yeah, it was my second year in the PhD program, and then I saw that they are new students, and then I saw you a little bit shocked. I can sense that you felt a bit out of space, out of place, and out of space at the same time.
Yeah.
And I remember you asked me some questions about something, about the courses, I think.
Yeah, because I was in NTNU in the spring semester, and then I didn't get any orientation. I didn't get any other information before coming to the class. Even the building's name was in Chinese, and it's still in Chinese now. Do you know that Cheng building?
Oh yes.
All of the buildings
it's
are
all
in Chinese, and at that time I couldn't read anything. That's why I was maybe half an hour late to class. I couldn't find the building.
I get it. Yeah.
So that is one thing. Another thing is that I was amazed by you guys' language proficiency.
Oh, because I remember on that first class we were already talking about research.
Yeah. Immediately.
Yeah.
So I was shocked about everything. And my classmates, they were very nice.
They were helpful.
They shared with me that they have been, learning the language in kindergarten. Starting from kindergarten.
I think that's mostly the case in a way.
That was a second shock for me. Because in Vietnam, I started from grade 6.
Oh, that's relatively later.
And in just only local school. Studying here, I know that in Taiwan, students go to cram school after class in order to enhance their language proficiency and then other subjects, other major subjects. My classmates shared with me it was because of the time that they started, and it was because of the teachers. They get exposed to native speakers since very early age. But then in my entire life of studying, I have never been taught by a native speaker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So most of the time it was self-study at home, and it was local schools.
I see.
Yeah.
And how about the non-language related issues? Do you actively seek help from professors?
Yes. I love Taiwan because people are friendly, and they are 100% willing to support if you have any problem as an international student. So even for the dormitory, do you know that if I want to apply for a dormitory bed, I have to ask all of my classmates because the dormitory's website is in Chinese. And then the emails is in Chinese. And actually, I lost my bed this semester.
Oh no!
Yeah.
So you don't have any bed?
No.
So where are you staying?
I was on the waiting list for this semester. But then in 12th May, they sent me an email in Chinese saying that Chloe, you have a bed, and in order to secure this bed, you have to, maybe finish or complete the survey in this email. But normally, I tend to ignore the Chinese emails. So at the end of May, I wrote them an email asking, I'm sorry, but it is at the end of May.
Yeah,
And I haven't heard anything about my bed in the dormitory.
Yeah.
Can I ask about my bed status? And they said, oh, Chloe, I already sent you an email saying that you have a bed, but you didn't complete the survey, so you lost your bed.
So what are you gonna do now?
So I actually rented the space outside with double, triple
The money. Oh no.
Yeah, so it was my fault not checking the Chinese email. So for an international student, for me, there will be some times that you feel really bad. Because you didn't know the language. And then you should have learned it before coming here.
But I think partially the university should probably include an English translation or English email. But moral of the story, everyone, do not ignore any important emails that is sent by the campus, right? Now that we have covered the challenges in academic writing, I would like to talk about the challenges when it comes to in academic speaking, because most of the courses offered in our graduate program, in TESOL program, are mainly seminar-based, and there will be lots of in-depth and sort of intense discussion about a certain research field, right? And with most of the discussions are now done in English, which is your L2, it can be scary to speak up in class. So what is your experience like so far?
So initially it was quite intimidating because English proficiencies of Taiwanese students are beyond my expectations.
Oh, beyond.
I would have to say, all of my classmates speak the perfect English. The one that they say, speak like a native speaker.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, at first I am not sure because they are good students, so they are in the program, or they really represent the general Taiwanese students. So that was for the language proficiency part. Before the group discussion, I think even though I'm not saying that my English is perfect, but the participating the discussion with them is quite comfortable. No one will ever criticize or make comments about your language proficiency. It was just your inner fear. So if you can overcome that, I believe that you will have no problem participating in group discussion, and it was my case. At first I was a bit insecure speaking in front of my classmates. As I said earlier, I haven't used English in communication for so many years before coming here. And then everyone's here have perfect English. So definitely it was a shock to me. I kind of isolated myself. But then if you want to fit in, if you want to make friends, if you want to learn, you have to overcome that yourself. You have to improve. You have to see that as a motivation for you to perfect yourself, perfect your English proficiency.
I think you pointed out some very important, let's say, points there, because it is intimidating when you are, let's say, in an environment where you're kind of just alone, and you're out of nowhere you have to start speaking in a different language, talking about, I don't know, creativity research, right? How do you overcome that anxiety or fear other than speaking up?
So whenever my classmates, they use any phrases that I think are useful, I would take notes of them. For example, Amy, I remember, she usually used take into consideration.
Oh yeah, Amy does that a lot.
Yeah. And then, for example, Sandy, she would say, if we take a look at a bigger picture. So
I remember that.
So these languages are the language that I wouldn't think of using, because the way I taught it would be so much more basic, I would say.
I wouldn't say basic, but it's more like the sentence structures are more let's say at the beginner level,
Yeah.
when you first got in, when you
Yeah.
first entered the program.
Yeah.
And I think after this 1.5 year, and I have finally somehow we were in the same class again.
Yeah.
I noticed a difference in
Oh,
terms of
really?
your speech.
Oh.
Like, it's so different from how you were when you first got
in the first semester.
Yeah, the first semester you were really freaking out, I can
Yeah.
tell. Right now I feel like you're definitely more confident. Whenever you went up to your presentations, I'm like, oh my gosh, you prepared it so well, oh god.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. I learned from professors, I learned from classmates. In terms of English proficiency, because being a teacher and you are making mistakes while speaking, that is something that I really scared of when I speak the language. But then I think that when comparing myself to the classmate here, we are from different background. We started from the very different starting point.
Exactly.
Yeah, so at that point I stopped comparing myself, and I told myself that even though I make mistakes along the way, it's fine, because because it's the sign that you're still growing. If you're aware your mistakes,
Yeah.
and then it's a sign of you growing.
And actually in grad school we can't help but to compare,
Yeah.
right? And when you're seeing like, oh, all my classmates are doing so well, why can't I? Or there's this phrase that a lot of people would say, oh, I should have blah 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 blah. I could have blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But I feel like what you mentioned earlier, we all have different things to offer. And in terms of that fear of speaking up, like, honestly, don't be afraid, because for all the listeners out there, your English proficiency level is probably not that bad. You just have to put it into words, and then people could get your idea. And I think that's the main strategies to overcome that sort of anxiety, speaking anxiety, or to overcome that fear. But I think you pointed out the strategy that you use. You listen to your classmates' speech, and then you take phrases here and there, and then you make it into your own. You even have your own signature phrases. Do you know that when you're presenting?
Thank you for pointing that out. Actually, in my very first semester, I was freaked out. So I even went to our library, to borrow the book named English Presentation Language.
Oh, Jesus!
Told you in my bachelor time, I didn't have to present anything. That's why my public speaking skill and then my presentation language, they both are suck.
I wouldn't say that. Well, it definitely could be improved. Let's say.
Yeah.
And here comes another advertisement time, guys. Tutors at Center of Academic Literacy could help you out with your presentation skills as well. Well, thank you so much again for joining me today, Chloe.
Thank you, Michelle. It has been wonderful to kind of express yourself, express your...
Yeah, it's a nice chatting session, of course. And today we basically covered the struggles that international students go through in terms of academic and their life, and then also their future prospects. So thank you all for tuning in, and watch out for more spilling.